passionate about motherhood. Yay, so the days are getting warmer, so I don't have a cup of tea today. Welcome to our chatting space, where I really hope that these conversations are inspiring you to cultivate life in your homes, learning in your homes, and beauty as well. So this is where I share about our homeschooling journey. I share a little bit about my experience and my just learning and growing as a mom, and also any things that I find on my heart and the things I'm really passionate about, one of which is looking after ourselves as moms and as women as we do this thing called life, looking after our emotional health, our physical health, our hair, self-care, and all these things. So welcome to the space. So the last time I posted a video on what it takes to homeschool, I received quite a few comments and people asking questions, and one of them was around high school homeschooling, and also socialization. So I thought I'll take a moment in this video to just share my own thoughts about this idea of homeschooling in the high school years. What does it look like? What can you do to make sure that it is an awesome time in your homeschooling? A few things to consider specifically with high school homeschooling, and of course socialization comes up. Socialization, everybody asks this question, which is like a complete non-issue when it comes to homeschooling, because honestly, you and I are social beings. Our children are being raised in the context of family, of people, of life experiences. And just because you are homeschooling doesn't mean that you are locked in at home, literally seeing no one and having no life outside of this home. But when you're raising teenagers in the teenage years, it seems like peers and being able to make friends and being able to come into a sense of your own becomes very, very important. So let's chat about that here for today. And okay, so if you're new here, a couple of introductions. My name is Clarinda. I'm a mom of 3 children. My oldest is 15, my middle daughter is 14, and our youngest is 11. And we've been homeschooling right from the beginning. This is our 10th year of homeschooling, and honestly, this has been one of the greatest adventures for me personally as a mom, but I love to see the growth in my kids. And now that I have the 2 in high school, they have a lot of say as to what is happening in this journey. And you'll know that as I've shared about our homeschooling, we started off reviewing literally year by year whether this was working. And as they've gotten older, their input and their say into their learning and all of that really has freed me up a lot. So now I'm not the one in the driving seat of their homeschooling, and I think that homeschooling in the high school years can be so rewarding. But we all know that teenagers are challenging in their own ways. Okay, high schoolers are challenging in their own way. Why? They're coming into a sense of their own space. Let me close this a bit. This is the quietest space in my house, outside, literally facing sunlight. So teenagers, young people, however you want to refer them to, are coming into a sense of their own. They are learning to make their own choices and decisions, and feeling the weight of what it is like to be a unique own person with your own thoughts and feelings. And they're starting to kind of decide whether or not they're going to internalize the things that they've been learning at home or not. They're deciding what to keep and what to chuck out, and it can be a very challenging period of time. They question so many things, and to the extent that our relationships with them have been healthy, we can navigate this period of parenting and life a lot better than if there have been some negative patterns. So homeschooling happens in the context of family life, as you know. And so I really love to start the conversation there. For me, homeschooling my high schoolers has been a natural progression. I know that sometimes they don't need me as much as what they did when they were little toddlers running around. We were playing, we were building, and I used to set a lot of the pace for our homeschooling. I used to plan a lot of things. I used to create more of an environment with them. I used to really, really be hands-on with them. Now I'm learning that one of the best things that I can do in my homeschooling of my high schoolers is to give them a sense of feeling really, really empowered, a sense of ownership, a sense of freedom in making choices with healthy boundaries of this is where mommy begins and this is where you begin. And so in the high school years, it can be a whole lot of fun, but it can also really require me as a homeschooling mom to change. And I must say there were moments where I felt nobody needs me, because remember what is happening in the high school years, people can read, people can understand things, people can investigate and research. At least those are some of the skills that we have been building. And so sometimes their knowledge levels and what they are hungering for and what they're ready for runs past us. My son is at a stage where I can hardly help him with, especially the sciences and the math. Hey, I can hardly help him. So in the high school years, we need to recognize where we are no longer able to support our kids in a particular way, and we may need to bring in outside help. We need to bring in other mentors into their lives. We need to put them in front of other people, put them in front of other experiences, and we need to have them be a part of that conversation as to, hey, this is where you are, these are the growth areas. How do we then together make sure that you are stretched, challenged, but also taking more and more ownership for your learning? So the high school years can be a whole lot of fun. Remember, we're not teaching children how to read and write anymore. We're not changing nappies. We're not, like, literally, people are becoming their own people. So I see it as an opportunity, really. In the high school years, there's so many options, guys, for homeschooling, because now we are thinking of that accreditation. People start thinking more about graduating and finishing off. In South Africa, we call it our matriculation. People are thinking about that now. That becomes like we are now. In the earlier years, we are broad and wide and hopefully deep, but in the high school years, we start to create some momentum of getting focused. We are discovering what our kids are really great at, and we building that in. We are focusing on, okay, you're showing signs that, wow, you love IT and computers. Now we're going to hone in on that. So there's some aspect of specializing that takes place in the high school years, but it shouldn't happen too quickly, I would say. Every child is so different. We want to still be fanning the flames of enjoying and loving learning and taking ownership, but then we want to also be building in some focus towards that finishing line of high school. So in high school in South Africa and homeschooling, there's so many options. People either continue eclecticing their homeschooling, piecing things together. Other people go for a very structured curriculum at this stage. So there's options for Cambridge International exam, where kids start then going through their IGS SCEs and writing the A's, A-level stuff, and preparing for finishing and getting access into university. We follow a classical approach in our homeschooling, and so we are aiming for the American High School Diploma, where you gather different credits of different subjects. You have to have a certain number of credits in order to graduate, and then you have to sit and write the SATs or ACTs for gaining access into a university. And then obviously there's the CAPS curriculum and the IEB curriculum. Some people use online resources for that, and all sorts of variety of different things. For me, I don't see homeschooling as bringing school to home, although online schooling is a somewhat of another alternative for doing things. I really prefer not to put my teenagers in front of the screen the whole time. For some kids it may work, but I found that it leads to a lot of exhaustion, and that interaction with people, which is what they need in the high school years, is really, really missing. So we are part of a co-op. My kids are part of a co-op, and their class is made up of 11 students that meet once a week, and they cover different strands in our homeschooling curriculum. They cover research, math discussions. They do Latin, believe it or not. They do the reasoning strand and logic. And they do debate strand, which includes all sorts of things. Like right now, this semester, they are getting ready for a mock trial that they're putting together. And they're going to be working as a team, collaborating and problem solving, and exercising a lot of reasoning, discussion, being able to argue your point, putting together arguments, putting together strategy, etc. All this to say, there are many ways to skin this cat, but in the high school years, I really, really recommend having your student take ownership for how they are going to track this course. They are the ones who are going to be studying. So yes, they need support, but they need to actually have the skills to be able to study on their own. They need to be able to be supported with organizing themselves. Big deal. I always say to my kids, you need to show what you are doing, what you are learning. You need to be able to have evidence for what you are doing and learning. So I don't want stuff just hanging out in your head. We need evidence of your work. So record keeping, organizing themselves, and being able to show physical record of their stuff is something that they need to take ownership of. When my kids were really younger, yes, I still love to take photos, and I still love to, I used to write reports of their year. I used to set goals and things like that. Now I am doing it with them and passing on that baton for them to say, hey, what are your goals for this week? How do we evaluate this term? And what is the evidence of your work? So being able to organize themselves, manage their time. For me, having a to-do list with my teenagers is so important. Have a to-do list and then a feedback time where they can come and tell me how they have been using their time. Staying accountable for the use of their time. That's the kind of support role that I am playing more and more in my kids' lives now. So let's talk very briefly about socialization. Guys, there's nothing to worry about when it comes to socialization. I think people sometimes think, okay, we're still on the faraway place where we're disconnected from people. People used to homeschool back in the day where they were on farms and they had no access to school. That's not the case. Nowadays, we have social clubs, we have extramurals, as I said, we have a co-op. You have also got context as a family. You've got friends, you've got people you know, you've got places you go to, you've got church groups, you've got stuff happening around you, your social lives. And I always say that if a family is so insular and is so afraid of the world out there, then weird things start to happen, I promise you. So for me, it's not a question about is my child at school and able to have tons of friends? Because even at school, you do not know what the quality of those friendships are. Just because someone is surrounded by people doesn't mean that they are actually showing up authentically in those spaces. You have a whole ton of other issues to deal with when you are in a school space. Yes, in homeschooling, promise you do need to be intentional. Moms and dads need to be recognizing that, hey, as a family, and it should start from young, not just you wake up one morning, you've got teenagers like, oh my goodness, we need friends. No, you need to be building that in when they are young. Play dates and outings with other people. You need to get over yourself and find groups and spaces where your children, you as a family and your children are constantly interacting with. So everything from the extramurals that they're doing. I know we live in the city of Pretoria. There are schools around here that allow homeschoolers to participate in their sports. My one son is also in a music school, a school in Pretoria that is predominantly a music school. He does extra music there, where he participates in concerts, and there's events and spaces for him to practice skills outside of the home, showing up, taking accountability, having other figures in his life that input and impact them. I am so grateful for that. I do not believe I really do not believe that keeping your children just you and them, and you the only influence in their lives, is the best thing. It is the primary thing, and it should be given great importance. Children need family more than they need friends, but they do need other exposure to situations, social contexts. How do you behave when you're in a concert? How do you behave? Just different exposure, and all of that should be woven into our everyday lives, is the point that I'm trying to make. And so socialization, I think people think more of being social. Socialization is different in the sense that socialization is a process that any person in a society acquires the values and norms, and actually functions in a group, be able to function in a group. Socializing is just basically just friendship making, building relationships, connecting with people. But family is the most important socialization agent out there, hands down. All the research shows it is the foundation of society. So having a healthy home for a teenager is absolutely key. This is where they come, and this is where they learn how to deal with conflict. This is where they feel a sense that they can be vulnerable. All this stuff, healthy stuff, is modeled at home. So I am confident that building a healthy family life is literally creating a healthy space for a toddler, a teenager, and forevermore, really. And then for parents to then connect with other people, find out what's going on in your community. And socializing is not just about me, focus on me. How do I feel about being a part of? It's actually about being able to bring contribution to people. We are called to love God and to love yourselves, but to love others, right? So your ability to be able to create mobility towards loving and serving others, I think is one of the key things. So teenagers, being aware of what's going on in their community and serving, finding opportunities to serve. Maybe there's a neighborhood cleanup happening in your neighborhood. Maybe you are volunteering at an old age home. My kids both volunteer in our children's church. In our church, we don't have a youth group in our church as yet. We've got the younger group, but they volunteer there. One of them is stretching themselves more than the other, but I think it's a healthy space. Youth groups are a great place for teenagers to mingle around all sorts of other people. I think it's healthy, and I think you can start small, but the bigger, I think, the better. One of my son went to visit a bigger youth group recently, and he was so eager to go. I think he's a social introvert. I don't know how to put it. And so it's so good to actually recognize that actually for him, more than my daughter, being in a bigger space is important for him. He's fine with a small group of people, but being in that bigger space where everybody is not known to you is so important for him. And so I see that, I recognize that, and I make a plan to make sure that, hey, dude, get out there, right? We're not trying to make homeschooling a place where it's like a too safe of a zone. It's like, let's not do that. Let's absolutely not do that. There are all sorts of Facebook groups, by the way. So I would hop onto Facebook and check in your area what homeschooling groups are available. Sometimes the homeschooling groups on Facebook are huge, and so they're just a great place to ask huge questions. And I'll link in for your South African context people, I'll link like a Facebook group for South Africans who are homeschooling. But even in our smaller space, we have a Facebook group that's for our area where we live. So you want to search there as well, because then people can link you to smaller WhatsApp groups, and you'll be in touch with all the different activities that's going on around you. Sometimes it's just not knowing. And so being a researcher as a mom, if you're homeschooling, be a researcher for your kids. Be an advocate for your kids. You're not doing life for them. You are finding and exploring things, showing them how to do the same thing, and engaging them with them. I'm so grateful for people who offer what they have to enrich the lives of teenagers. So a really great friend of mine is an incredible homeschooling mom. She is really, really passionate about equipping moms and equipping families. She started opening up these simulation sessions for teenagers where they can role play different scenarios and problem solve and challenge themselves, have discussions. It is incredible what is available out there to equip high schoolers and to really help them feel capable, prepared, and able to walk into any space, be brand new, and tap into the skills that you have. I've been teaching my kids to be really, really good listeners, to be able to ask great questions, to not just show up in a place to be the cool kid, but to show up in a place to invite others so that you can see them and you can experience them and know them. Listen, the power of the what is that book? Highly influential people. The 7 Habits of Highly Influential People. Check out that book. It's got some great tips I think that all teenagers and parents need to read. Anyway, this is becoming quite long. The moral of the story is homeschooling in high school years can be a ton of fun. Yes, if depending on what path of curriculum you've chosen, there's exams at the end of it. But you are then involving your homeschooling high school in the process. You are not doing the work for them. Yes. Are you engaged? Yes. Are you involved? Yes. Are you good at engaging in discussions with your teenagers? You better be. Get into being able to be a good conversational person, be able to ask questions, being able to engage them, getting them to think, getting them to teach you what they know. Inspire that environment of learning because you're interested, because you're encouraging, because you yourself are taking ownership for the stuff that belongs to you. Thank you for joining me here. We could be talking for a long time. It's like 20 minutes later, but I hope this just gives you a bit of an encouragement that, hey, you can homeschool in the high school years. Follow me over on Instagram. I share a lot of our homeschooling journey there in stories, and you can DM me there. We can have conversations if you have any more specific questions around homeschooling. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.